Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So, Monastic Nights. What an interesting unit this has been. This has been really quite a long video in the making, this one. Partly because they're tier 5, so they take quite a bit longer to level up. I mean, I've only got them to level 17. These guys go all the way up to level 30. I certainly do not have the time to quite get them to that level. But I've had a really kind of a mixed experience with these guys, and yeah, kind of good, kind of bad, and that's kind of what I wanted to run through with them today. So, firstly, kind of what are they like? They're really the heaviest cavalry in the game. They have really nice armor values, although we'll talk a little bit about the two veterancy line options that you get with them. But they're really heavy, really nice, but very slow. They have this sluggish attribute, and never has an attribute been more true on any unit than sluggish is for Monastic Knights. They really are sluggish. They're not inherently slow. They're just slow to change direction, slow to go from non-moving to moving. They accelerate slowly, they change direction slowly, they turn slowly. They're just cumbersome. They're just, well, sluggish. And yeah, never has a unit really felt quite so sluggish as these guys. So it makes them really quite micro-intensive, because you're forever sort of trying to get them to go round the corner neatly, you know, in some sort of vague formation. If you just press follow me or something, then, you know, 3 of them run into a wall, another one gets caught on a tree, and then they spend about 5 minutes milling around in a circle trying to get themselves unstuck. So you really have to micro these guys to keep them going, otherwise you just end up in a right mess. So that's something I found quite hard to adapt to compared to other cavalry, because I kind of get used to my other tier 5 cav, my Rattan Rangers, kind of get used to just being able to double tap C, and they stay with you in some sort of vague sense of formation, and these guys don't. Obviously, doctrine-wise, you know, through on the movement speed, they're not that slow, but every little helps with these guys, it really does. Obviously, piercing damage, piercing armor penetration, because their piercing armor penetration of 2,000 is really quite good, along with the damage of just over 1,000, makes these easily the best melee cav in the game. So you throw these guys into a little bit of hand-to-hand combat, and they actually do really quite well, much better than sort of any other cavalry unit. They also have a really decent charge, I find. But as I say, that sluggishness comes in. They need distance to get the speed going and get the charge going. Otherwise, they don't lower their lancers, and your charge basically does nothing. So it's easy to mess the charge up. And they'll still lose to something like Winged Hussars or something. You know, they're not against other tier 5 cav. They won't outcharge necessarily everything else. But yeah, all in all, quite a nice unit. But I think there's one big flip side that I think perhaps is sometimes overlooked, and really that's the leadership cost. So a 350 leadership unit, that is a lot of leadership to spend. For me, as a poleaxe main wearing a full set of guardsmen, that's half my leadership. I only get 700 leadership. You know, if you're running Carnifex, or maybe if you've got some extra leadership attributes attached to your armor, then you know you might be able to get away with this a little bit more. But for a heavy armor user, that is half my leadership in one unit, and that is a lot to lose if you make a mistake with this unit. And I think that's kind of what I find I'm doing the most. Some games, yeah, I can have lovely games, you know, and you go and get 70, 80, 100 kills. Great, you know, nice game. But a lot of games, I get 30 kills. And I think a lot of people do that. I think it's one of these units that's played a lot by people like me, they average players. And I think you could get 30 kills and think, oh, that's not so bad. But it is, particularly when you consider that 20 of those kills were spear militia or something. And then your 350 leadership, you're really not getting close to doing 350 leadership's worth of damage. And I think that's something that tends to creep in quite a bit with tier 5 cav. You know, you've got to be getting a lot of kills to get your 350 leadership's worth of damage back. Unless you're hitting something you know, very high value. Maybe if you charge into a unit of Reapers and get a lot of damage or get some kills there, you know, then maybe you can start to think that it's worth it. But a lot of the time people aren't, and particularly myself, I was finding that I wasn't, you know. Often I'm getting a charge, find myself getting a charge against, you know, a couple of serfs, a unit of Iron Cap Swordsmen, and clipping a couple of Prefecture Guards, got 50 kills, and thinking, oh yeah, well done Evo, what a great charge. Well, in reality, was it? I've done maybe 100 leadership's worth of damage because I've half-healthed a few units, low-value units. Well, that isn't necessarily such a good thing. So I think that's something that has to be kind of taken into account. I think it's one of these units that has a very high skill cap. I think very good players can do very well with it, but I think more average players like myself, I don't know if I'm necessarily getting my leadership's value out of it. Although, as a final point before we actually hop into a battle, I think it is worth saying that in terms of clearing a point, you know, when you're trying to just push, unit losses be damned, then they do come in because they're a very hard unit to kill. They've got a great charge and they do clear that B point when you need them to. So, you know, double-edged sword, but I think it's something that needs to be considered. Are you actually getting the most out of your unit value-wise, or would you be better off with some cheaper cavalry units? Anyway, enough waffling. I've talked far too long already. Let's just get stuck into some gameplay and kind of see how we've been getting on with these guys. So, for our first clip, we are into a field battle. I've kind of been playing these monastics on both sieges and fields. They work fine in both. I find in sieges the problem is you tend to get some nice charges off, but then they tend to, you know, hit a wall, get caught out, get surrounded and die, whereas in field battles they seem to have a chance of running through the charge a bit more because it's a slightly more open map. So I kind of find that tends to pan out a little bit nicer. And you know, you can get some pretty nice charges, actually go toe-to-toe with some other cavalry, you know, monastics get the win. Carry on, you know, they get hero kills pretty easily because they do a really high damaging charge. And as you see now, even though we lose a good few units sort of on the return, you know, we actually still also pick up some kills on the return as well, because they do have that really nice melee damage. And they do really work really well in that capacity. One of they, unlike me, just trying to aimlessly swing around hitting enemy cavalry and can't hit absolutely anything at all. But in that charged capacity, they do work really quite nicely. And then I'm pushing back on to try and secure the cap to try and stop this guy from getting his. I just go in and between the two of us, we slowly beat him to death. But one thing that I didn't mention at the start, which I think is important to touch on, is the two veterancy line for Monastic Nights. So they have both the upper veterancy line, which is the one I've gone for, which is basically increased charge damage, and then they have a bottom veterancy line, which is increased durability, so higher piercing defense, slashing defense, you know, reduction in range and melee damage, so a much more tanky unit. You know, if I was doing this again, I think I would probably go for the bottom line. You know, they do actually have a really nice charge to them already, so I'm not sure there's necessarily that much to gain by increasing that all that much. So yeah, in hindsight, I think I would probably be more inclined to go for the bottom veterancy line and make them a much more tanky unit, particularly when they're such a nice unit in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, as kind of we see here, so we get the nice charge through, and then because it looks like I'm so dominantly going to win this fight anyway, I'm happy to call the unit back, and you just see they just get stuck in and just go around laying around them. They really are a nice melee unit. You can just use them almost as a mobile sword unit. Unfortunately, then the last few, then they start to get a bit caught up and start to get shot quite a lot by those enemy guns, and we lose, you know, we get down to 3 or 4 men just left in the unit, which is kind of a bit unfortunate. But we pull back, trying to get out what I can. I was sort of thinking about, I think one of them just bled to death there, unfortunately. Trying to think about what else I might be able to do with them that kind of would be useful. I think I then ultimately decided that there's not a lot of point in going back and changing unit per se, because, well, there's only now 3 left. Didn't think it was worth the time going back to heal them or anything, so I thought, well, let's try and find a nice sort of angle to get a good charge off. See if we can get some damage in, sort of as a bit of a last huzzah with them. You know, we've not done too badly this game with them. But again, you know, we're still up to sort of 60, 70, 80 kills I think we got with these guys. So it's not bad, but remember it's a 350 leadership unit, so you really got to at least be getting that sort of level of damage, you know, to kind of make it worthwhile. And you see, we managed to clip a little bit of that end musket unit before they got killed, but that then ultimately kind of spells their demise. And then, so on to some siege battles, just some short clips now, and you can see that I was initially thinking about those spear sergeants, but they ran around the corner, and I didn't feel I could get round that corner in time because of their sluggishness. So we charged, and these Rattler Rangers nicely got in the way. And that sort of charge is worthwhile because we kill an equally high leadership unit. And when you start doing that, that's when I think Monastic Nights become much more worthwhile, because that is a worthwhile kill to have. You know, we got the whole of them, we also killed some of the infantry and stuff, and it cost us 1 unit model. That is worth it. That's when the 350 ship leadership starts to become quite good. So then a bit later on in the same battle, I ended up outside the walls kind of harassing some of the enemy people outside. I don't know quite what he was doing. I'm not sure what he thought was going to happen. And you'll kind of see where I do some good things, some bad things. So I see these archers initially, and I'm not charging because I didn't see a lot of point. You know, this unit is an amazing melee unit, as I've said. And look, as we just walk over them, they just swing around and absolutely eviscerate the unit. You know, the unit just dies almost immediately. you don't need a charge in that sort of close range situation. I'd rather save my charge for another unit. But then I'm thinking, well, let's try and get myself out of here, and this is why I don't do so well. I should have dealt with the heroes immediately. I tried to run, but they're all on horseback, so they can all catch up with my unit quite easily. And now I'm sort of thinking, you know, I'm trying to protect my monastics, but they're kind of all a little bit caught out, and I'm dealing with these heroes. So I get off, this one's on the floor, so I just go straight with my ultimate because it pins him down, call the unit to me, of course, kills him really easily. Second guy gets caught on the ground, and this is where the really high melee damage of the Monastic Nights is nice, because we're able to get ourselves 2 hero kills really quickly, and then we're able to pull ourselves out and get ourselves out there with 5 unit losses, but still 10 units, albeit all in very low health. But, you know, for every nice charge, I end up with charges like this. Yeah, great. I was too late on the charge, so they didn't get to build up properly. They didn't really do a lot. They got, what, maybe 20 kills and they died. And 20 not even particularly great kills, not against any great infantry or anything. We didn't kill the Iron Reapers, that's the word. Again here, largely missed my charge. I actually get away with this one because of their amazing melee ability. You see, they end up laying about them and then they're basically killing that unit of spearmen anyway, iron cap spears. But it was a pretty poor charge. It's so easy to mess up your charge, and then that's pretty much it. And then you just get yourself killed, and that's 350 leadership down the drain. And I know I keep banging on about that, but that for me is kind of the main thing I think I've learned about them. You've just got to be so careful with them to make them a worthwhile unit. But anyway, hopefully that's kind of been an enjoyable video. They're a strange unit. I've generally enjoyed playing with them, but I'm just not sure they're a unit I'm going to be taking into sieges and field battles all that often. Certainly for things like territory wars, you know, they're great. That's when they really come into their own. But I think for sieges and field battles, as a unit, I'm not sure they're worth it, particularly when you're looking at sort of 20,000 for a kit and a horse anyway as well. I'm just not sure it's worth that real cost. But anyway, hopefully this has been enjoyable. If it has, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.